We would like to welcome you to the podcast today, which we'll be discussing around LGBT plus issues at Squire Patton Boggs. Introducing myself, I am Matthew Flanagan, an associate in the corporate team in the Manchester office in the United Kingdom. My fellow colleagues who are also on the podcast with me today, who will now introduce themselves.
I'm Rafael Langer-Osuna. I'm a partner in litigation in the San Francisco and sometimes Miami offices. I use they, them pronouns.
Oh, hello. My name's Francesca. I tend to go by Chess. My pronouns are she, her. I am a first-year trainee at Squires based in Birmingham. I've been with the firm about 9 months, meaning that I've worked my entire career remotely, which I imagine will inform a lot of what I say today.
And I'm Mary Jo Hudson. I'm a partner in the Columbus, Ohio office, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. I've been with Squire about 5 years.
Okay, so I think the first topic that we're looking to discuss today are sort of the issues that we encounter as part with the LGBT plus community and being part of the committee at Squire Patton Boggs. So Mary Jo, just to get your views firstly on what are the issues that we face.
Oh well, I think the top of mind and is how do we bring our authentic selves to our work and to our colleagues and our practice every day? And do we have a good, clear path for us to be able to do that and not be concerned about safety, security, et cetera, for ourselves, our families, and our communities?
Definitely, completely agree. And I think, it is that element of the importance of being able to find out information and what is available to us. So, and Rafael, just sort of in terms of the challenges that may be encountered, what are your views on that?
Well, one of the things I've encountered is, and I myself, to be honest, encountered this, is that narratives about what it means to be gender diverse have only just now begun trickling out into the mainstream. So there's a fair amount of explaining to do with respect to my own gender identity, which is non-binary. And that involves unpacking some pretty complicated and yet commonly understood concepts like gender, where folks have all of these conceptions that they don't even realize they have. I was explaining my own gender journey to one of our colleagues, and their response was to say, I've never faced any of those questions. I've never considered any of that. And I'm like, yes, that's exactly the point. That's what it means to be cisgendered or cis, which is a term that was created in opposition to the idea of transgender, which can be treated as an umbrella term that encompasses folks who at some point in their life move towards a gender that they were not assigned at birth, which is a somewhat arbitrary thing when you really get down into it. But we could get into a lot of depth in these concepts. I just wanted to introduce a few of them. Non-binary, of course, refers to folks who are not men or women, but rather somewhere off of that binary spectrum. For me, it's actually a shorthand for gender fluidity, which is an even more complicated concept to explain sometimes. So that's one of the key issues that I think non-binary and trans lawyers face, is sort of giving people an update on what it means to be non-binary or trans. But I think also, in general, the whole LGBTQ community sometimes just faces misconceptions about who we are and what that means. The reality of it is we're just normal people like everyone else. And we may happen to have attractions that are not necessarily the supposedly normative, or we may have gender identities that differ from what is most common. But in reality, we're just regular coworkers who want to bring our partners to firm events, etc.
I couldn't agree more on that. And I think by what we're doing is raising that educational piece, throughout the firm by doing this podcast today that hopefully many of our colleagues will listen into and, really raise that awareness, even more so than we're currently doing. So, couldn't agree more. And Chess, in terms of, quite interested to get your review, having been at the firm overly long, in terms of being part of today's podcast and part of the LGBT plus committee internally, just get your reviews on that.
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Like, as you say, fresh faced. But for me, it's certainly worth highlighting the benefits of resource groups like this. The reason that I find this group so important is actually rooted in my time at university when I was studying law, but had no particular interest or intention of going into practice. Not until a senior lecturer took an interest in a group of us in my course who were all queer and got us interested in practice. And the point that I want to make through that is that no one had ever told me that I couldn't be a lawyer because I was gay, but I had never seen any. And it was only from that point onwards that I started to see this career as a possibility for me. And I think that carries on at firm level. So seeing people in these groups at all levels of their career is really valuable as a junior, because it allows you to project yourself and consider your own future. And you've got to remember, in the UK anyway, you've got a generation of juniors at the moment who are sitting in their bedrooms with no concept of office life. What you see on screen is the firm. So it's important that we be seeing materials from all of the internal diversity groups that we have, to know that these people are out there somewhere, and that eventually you'll come together face to face.
Definitely. And I think that, element, what you're saying in terms of having the support from the top down is crucial. And, that really provides, I think, the confidence for paralegals, trainees, junior lawyers coming through at a younger age to really, be themselves, bring themselves to the workplace and have that element of confidence that they should possess anyway, without have to hide who they are. And I think that sort of ties in and leads on quite well in terms of just raising awareness about the issues as a whole. I've been with the firm since February 2020, and since I've been involved in the LGBT plus committee since I think a week from joining the firm, it's been fantastic to see how much we are raising awareness as a firm, not just in the UK but on a global basis. And I think the more we as a committee, we put ourselves out there, the more, as I've said before, the more educated our colleagues and the general public become in terms of what we're doing and the issues that we're trying to raise awareness on. Whether that be doing internal podcasts like this, raising awareness via our various social media platforms, LinkedIn, Instagram, whether that doing sort of blog posts, live video feeds, live video streams, which I know we'll be doing in the next couple of weeks as well, is crucial. And it's that engagement with members of the LGBT plus committee internally that I think the firm needs and the general public need to see this is what we're really about. And I think it's also important, not just about the members of the LGBT plus community, but also their family members and friends, and what we can do to support them, whether it be members of their family who are coming out or discussing gender identity, and what we can do to educate them, help them through that process, whether it's internal guides that we can provide, or just individuals that they can pick up the phone to and have a conversation with, who may have gone through coming out or gender identity themselves, or have dealt with it in a family basis previously. So I think it is that raising awareness point is so key. I think that's why we are involved in so many fantastic events throughout Pride Month, and it's really our time to shine. But it's also, I think, key that we should remember that we should continue to raise awareness throughout the year. It should not just be subject to 1 month. And that it's a continual ongoing program that we as a committee continue to strive and work towards. So it's the raising awareness point is always key and forefront of our agenda. So sort of, I've touched on what the firm has done in the last year, and it's sort of then touching on now in terms of what are we as a firm, what are we doing well. So Rafael and Mary Jo, just to get your thoughts on that in terms of highlighting, things that we as a firm are doing well.
So first, I would highlight, for a number of years in the U.S., Squire has been recognized as with what's 100% score on the Human Rights Campaign's Corporate Equality Index, and that signals and means that our internal HR policies are recognized and validate and support our LGBT colleagues, and that would be at all levels. Whether it's support staff through the attorneys. Also, there's a significant focus in the Corporate Equality Index on health benefits and making sure health benefits are inclusive. I will say, I'll put a little asterisk there that I think, Matthew, to your earlier point about learning more and having access, and for Chess's point on, right now the face of the firm is really on the screen. And we're hoping that'll change, in the coming months. But we need to do even better to make that information accessible to all of our colleagues via the web. We have the standard HR policy book, but we do need to do a little more. But that said, that score in the U.S. is significant. What I understand from on the UK side, that we are close. There's this Stonewall group in the UK does a similar scoring process. We haven't scored on that, or there's a different ranking process. That said, there is an effort to get that recognition, and according to our HR team, we've had a few technical issues. But that said, I think there is an effort, and I think that's it's great for Chess, Matthew, others, that where you are to help with that process. Rafael, I know you've dealt with policies much more directly, and let me tip it over to you to drill in a bit more.
Sure. In addition to the standard anti-discrimination and anti-harassment policies that the firm has, which are really set by those jurisdictions which lead on that, encompass quite a lot, which is the absolute bare minimum that any firm should be doing, which we do that part extremely well. We also have policies that are really important for folks that I think go well above and beyond what you see at other firms with respect to family leave, and also, for instance, the policy on gender identities and transitions. One of the key elements of that policy that I think is just so important that I'd really like to highlight and emphasize for all of my colleagues is that in our transition policy, and let me back up a second and tell you what that means, what that is. One of the elements of being transgender is perhaps at some point simply choosing to express your true gender identity, which might differ from the gender identity that you were assigned at birth. That can be a really intense experience, a really hard process, to be honest, and one that is ongoing as one shifts from one public gender expression to another. And it usually involves a lot of emotional labor and a lot of awkward conversations with folks about, who one is now that one is expressing one's actual gender. But one of the things that we have in our policy, in addition to all the other support for medical insurance and things like that, is the ability to appoint someone to help with that process, to help field questions, to help talk people through what that means, so that the person who's transitioning doesn't have the need to continuously have those conversations if they don't have the bandwidth to do that. That kind of thoughtfulness by the firm really helps make for a safe and supportive workplace. It's that kind of purposeful support, affirmative support, that makes Squire Patton Boggs the kind of workplace that it is, where we can all be who we truly are in the workplace. And I would, recommend those of you who have the bandwidth to voluntarily take on that role as well, of supporting your colleagues, pulling people aside and just explaining to them things if you hear them say something that to you suggests that they have some questions or some thinking that they need to do about something. That's what makes us just such a great place to work for everyone.
Agreed, and I think it's that element around, truly being yourself. I don't know about you all, but being in a firm where I can truly be myself, I know it motivates me from a work sense. It motivates me to be proud to say where I work as a firm, because I know how, outwardly we're seen, not just in the Manchester market, but globally. And I think overall, it really motivates you to be part of this firm and really want to bring this firm forward and in the right direction. So, and I think that sort of, in terms of what we're doing well, relates quite well to in terms of what clients are looking from us, as their legal advisors, what they're looking from us as a firm. And in the past number of years, we have seen a massive increase in clients asking us, what are you doing about X, Y, and Z? And one of those points being is what are you doing from an LGBT plus community front internally? Which has been fantastic to see, because I know in the past couple of years, a number of clients have said to me personally and to our team that the forefront of their agenda internally in their businesses is LGBT plus issues. So they as an organization have this as a huge agenda focus. So from their advisors, they're looking at they're also doing the same. And it's, probably representative of the attendance that the firm had at a recent event looking at LGBT inclusion in the workplace, and the attendance the spectrum of clients that attended that event. And it really shows that clients are really taking this seriously and want to see firms replicating and, really being outwardly voicing their opinions and supporting the LGBT plus community. And I think sort of, Rafael, to touch on sort of some of the educational work they've been involved with, if you want to touch on that in terms of how that ties in with what clients are looking from us as well.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've had the opportunity to do as a partner here is to really work on behalf of a number of causes that are really important to me. And I've joined the NALP non-binary task force, among other things. NALP is the National Association for Legal Placement, and they've undertaken to really help non-binary law graduates find their place within the legal profession. And part of the reason they've done that is because they're finding just the number of lawyers who are responding to surveys that they have a non-binary gender identity has just jumped dramatically in the last few years. And as part of that work, I've come across increasing numbers of lawyers, both in the firm context as well as in-house and government settings, who are, as everyone else is, looking to interact with and see people who are like them. And that's sort of one of the things that clients are looking for across the board with respect to intersectional representation. It's the idea that they can have lawyers who reflect the people that they are, the people that they're working with, so that they can get all of those perspectives and really have all of that inform the legal advice that they're getting, because as we all know, the law is about people, and ultimately is what it comes down to. And having a representative group within your team of legal advisors is just absolutely key to getting things right, and clients know it.
Definitely. And, I think it's such a positive element that clients are asking more and more around these, this important topic and what we're doing, because it shows they care. And by them asking, it sort of puts an emphasis on the firm to, expand on LGBT plus issues even more so, which is, again, fantastic. And I think there's that element in terms of it's not, just clients. I imagine, Chess, in terms of perspective, trainee solicitors coming in, or trainee lawyers across the firm globally coming to join us, I imagine is something that you maybe looked out for in terms of what the firm's doing, what they're, coming across, like on social media, the things that they have in place, policies and procedures internally, and, how they appear to undergraduates.
Yeah, that's completely right. Matt, this is a brilliant topic. And of course, it's not just about clients. How we tell our story externally is really important. From an applicant perspective, I mean, it's not too long ago for me. Applications to firms are made based on things like personal connections, but also on the basis of what information is out there and accessible. And plenty of people would rule out the idea of joining a firm where there was no obvious sign of allyship, because, as has been said, you want to see yourself reflected in the workplace that you're joining and that you're going to be devoting a lot of your life to. And there's a very real debate about over performative allyship in some spaces, but accreditations are great. There are rigorous requirements to getting these Stonewall and also the Human Rights Campaign accreditations, and if they tell a true story, we should chase them because they'll attract talent. And it's more than a sort of checklist exercise for queer people. So I think people, looking to join graduate schemes or even lateral hires as well, these are things that people are looking out for.
Completely, and I think completely agree that it's not just about the firm and the work and the clients. It's about the additional important issues that firms really take seriously. That, as you said, Chess, is that undergraduates, lateral hires are looking for and want, essentially, not that they're just boxes to be ticked, but they want to see those boxes ticked if they're going to move firm or come in as an undergrad. So, and it's fantastic to know that the firm is doing the right things in terms of how it appears to undergraduates like yourself, when you were applying to the firm, and to know that you sort of saw the firm as a place that you wanted to come and work. So that is fantastic. And I think, in terms of what we're touching on today, the LGBT plus issues that we encounter and we sort of experience in the firm is always that continual educational piece and how we're learning as a community. And I don't know about you all, but I think it's, especially around the terminology element, it's something that I always want to make sure that I'm kept up to date on, and ensuring that I'm not offending anyone and using the right terminology. So, Jess, just to get your opinions on the terminology piece and how we're learning as a community.
Yeah, absolutely. It certainly raises the question of how we sort of learn together and what we can do in this space. I think it's important to raise an easy time to raise in a medium like this the fact that we are all learning constantly, whether we're allies or part of the community. And what I think is important anyway is to throughout keep a willingness to engage and to learn and grow. Pride Month is great for that. For me, it's not so much about normalizing the queer experiences, but rather destigmatizing them. And I think that we can do that with events like this, and hopefully push people to maintain engagement beyond the month of June as well.
Definitely, and I think that's sort of highlights the importance of the community. Mary Jo, I think, just touching on that with yourself in terms of the importance of what we're doing today, the importance of discussing these LGBT plus issues, and the importance of community. What are your views on that?
Oh, I could go on like a whole podcast on community, but I think what the three of you have all reflected is it's generational, but in some ways about how maybe each generation, me in the more senior area, but look at gender and discuss gender. So like folks that are my peers in terms of age group, there's a lot that's new. That doesn't mean that they shouldn't embrace and understand and learn how to communicate and talk, because everybody, no matter age group or level of skill set in the firm, we're all part of one community. And it's important to know how to embrace everyone in that community, and make sure that we as a whole have created a welcoming space to be in, to work in. I mean, that is why I have worked in law and why I've worked in firms through my career, when it wasn't friendly at all when I got out of law school. How do you find your own way? It shouldn't have to be like that. But that's why I think the importance of doing a podcast like this, having trainings, making sure that we have trainings periodically on DEI issues. They include LGBTQ plus portions, so that there is a discussion that in our Teams area, in our emails, that we reference our pronouns and people understand the importance of that. I know I do that, and you don't see it very often. It's important. It's important it's not for me. It's for the people I'm communicating with. And so how we reflect our community starts with each of us individually, but it's really important. So we make sure that our everyone as a whole here knows how important they are. So I think there are folks that'll have to continue to get past discomfort, but they need to know it's important to make sure that for Squire to succeed, everyone brings their authentic self, and they know that the welcome mat is out and the door is wide open.
Definitely. And I think, it really highlights around the element of even learning from one another and creating a network of support. And I don't know about you, Rafael, but even, in the preparation for today's podcast and even on today's podcast, I feel like I've learned, things from each of you today.
Yeah, I mean, what's truly wonderful about the Squire global platform and genuine commitment to having a one firm kind of community is that at any point I can reach out to, and do reach out to, colleagues who are in the other offices in California, or all the way over there across the pond in the UK, or in Australia. I just sent an email to a colleague in Australia last night checking on something and got a response, because of course it's daylight over there last night. And, that community extends not just to how we do work in terms of the law we're practicing or our business contacts, but it also extends to how we are people to people. And it's that willingness to reach out to each other and befriend each other, in addition to being colleagues, that really makes this special and important place to be.
Definitely. And I think, it's also recognizing that, sort of having the strong support network that we have is not the case for all of our global colleagues, but for them to know that we as a committee are always here to support them and provide any support to the extent we can. And I think, that will really shine through in terms of the various events that we as a committee are involved in. And hopefully those listening to this podcast today in countries where, the LGBT committees aren't as maybe proactive or aren't able to be involved as much as we are, that we all as individuals and as a committee are here to help and support and guide them through any advice or questions they may have. So I think sort of, just before we close on today's podcast, I think each of us would like to sort of signpost to all of our listeners today where to find information. So first off, for any sort of UK content, I would like to signpost our listeners to our HR homepage, where there is a lot of content on there in relation to the LGBT plus committee, the community, and many of the issues we have discussed today. I think next, Mary Jo, in terms of the US, if you can provide some signposting in that respect.
Sure, Matthew. It really, they're in the same location on the intranet site. And I will say, in preparation for this gathering and some other things that are being planned for Pride Month, there are some flags that we're working with the Norfolk firm and here in the U.S. So I think we can work on making sure that those links are even more robust.
Great. And Chess, we're always open for new members to join the committee, aren't we?
Oh yeah, exactly. I'd definitely encourage people to join the resource group and to engage, sort of like as I said, at the risk of repeating myself, engage beyond Pride Month, share things that you think might be of interest to the group. I always love getting those, whether they're jurisdiction specific or not. It's always a nice thing to have in your inbox, and yeah, keep the conversation going.
We'll be sharing some additional content about gender diversity as well momentarily. Of course, the quick and easy takeaway is if you see people's pronouns, use them. If you make a mistake, apologize and move on. But yeah, I look forward to having those materials readily available to folks, and look forward to continuing this conversation with you all going forward.
Definitely. Well, I would like to say a big thank you to you all and to all of our listeners. So a massive thank you from myself, Rafael, Mary Jo, and Chess for listening to today's podcast. As we've said, if you have any questions, queries, we just fancy a chat, we're always available, always on hand, and we hope you have enjoyed today's podcast. Thank you.